Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to this next set of videos in COMP3218 Game Design and Development at the University of Southampton. So this is another one of our coursework videos. I am Tom Blount, I lecture on the course, and I'm joined here today with...
Callum Spalforth.
And Adrian Chapman, another lecturer on the course.
Callum, can you tell us a little bit about what we asked the students to do for this coursework?
So we asked the students to do a game prototype using one of three innovations, either the procedural generation of content, a novel game interface, such as virtual reality, augmented reality, or location-aware elements.
Excellent, so let's make a start. Our first game is... What is our first game?
I have no idea.
It's Pixel Cave Adventures.
Excellent.
Right.
So, fair warning, this did pop up with some controls, but I have... You know, they disappeared from the screen before I could read them.
Okay.
So I guess we have to pick up all this gold.
I remember seeing this one in the expo, yes.
You know how to play this then?
Nope.
Excellent.
I remember watching it, but I didn't actually play it.
You have a timer that's ticking down.
Yep, that's your
So
players.
you know?
I am stuck.
No, you're not. It's fine. Oh, as in you're stuck on the level.
Yeah, I'm physically stuck.
Just jump over it.
Slight collision I was going on here. Alright. So. Am I just picking up all this gold?
Yep, that's the idea, I think.
I believe you ultimately want to go down as well.
Yeah, you want to escape the level.
I just indefinitely jump along walls? Not quite. Not reliably.
Just good old Unity platforming. So,
How do the controls feel, since we're watching you bounce around these?
A little weird, because... So it's WASD or... No, keys. WASD to move, but W doesn't jump, space jumps.
Oh, right.
So I'm having to, like, use... Wow, I really take no damage from those.
that's fine.
Just tank all the spikes.
I think that thing
I've got a
is...
shuriken!
I forget how you use it.
I forget how you use it too.
Hopefully we'll find out when we...
Maybe that's W, or S, or arrow keys. No, I have no idea.
Sorry, we'll figure it out. So it looks like they've gone for a very sort of, what's the word, sort of Spelunky style generation where they've got these sort of room tiles that they're then putting together.
Now, how do you kill that thing? You definitely use the
Sorry,
knife you just picked
go
up.
past it, it's fine.
Okay, I'll just go this way.
Is it J, K, or L, or one of those?
We really should.
There
I
it
made a
was.
thing happen.
M?
M. For some reason. Okay. Just M. Alright, M. That appears to have... Okay, he's just suiciding onto my sword. Excellent.
Yes.
So it's one of the things I was talking about in the expo when I saw, was watching someone play this. The enemy paths feel very, very short. They're not... Oh, you won.
Okay.
You got 3,817. Let's see if you can beat it. And there we go. Space jump into attack.
Okay. Oh. So what was the point of picking up my shuriken?
You can throw it, I think.
Oh, but that wasn't on the control list, was it?
It's only, like, you picked up a knife afterwards, so the knife superseded the...
Oh, I see.
So yeah, how are you finding the levels at the minute?
They are... The platforming's alright. The controls are a little sticky and a little clunky in places. We've seen some very strange sort of jump... Well, there we go.
Yeah, there we go.
Perfectly timed. But otherwise, you know, they feel fairly varied. So there's quite a lot of... Oh, if I hit M, it does actually die faster. So yeah, it feels like there's a fair number of challenges here. I've not hit any bits that have felt impossible yet, which is always a good sign. Okay, that was better than that. There we go.
Very slow shurikens.
Why am I own? Can I get injured by my own shurikens? Is that possible?
Doesn't look like it.
Interesting. So it is starting to feel a little samey at this point.
There's the exit.
But I need to beat my 3,000 score, but I can't get up again. Hang on a minute. So before I go down, I have to go left to right, it looks like.
You don't have to.
But he wants to be the
But
score.
if I want to get a high score, I can't...
You want to
Go
get
down.
there faster, because you get a bonus based on time.
Oh, that bonus is significantly substantial, actually, compared to...
Yeah, it's like 10,000 times whatever time you do it. So you might...
Is there sound on this? If we're not listening?
Doesn't seem to be.
Doesn't seem to be. Okay.
So actually, I just want to go as fast as possible down, right?
Yeah, see if that gives you a better score. Alright, so let's kick off by talking about the presentation of the game.
Absolutely. Or in quality.
So yeah, it's mostly well put together. The sprites are sort of fairly consistent. Some of the there's a couple of little, what are they called? A few little glitches where the textures don't quite properly align. But
yep.
So let's see if we had a look at.
So what about information design? So we see there's a score, we see a time limit.
Yeah, little contextual pop-ups when we can pick something up. That's quite nice.
That's right. We have our health bar that travels with us.
Got all the enemies' health bars as well.
Yep. So pretty much the things that I need to know, except for that, the WASD M in the beginning, which we somehow missed the first time round because it went by too fast. The information that we need and want is there. Have we found any major bugs?
We keep getting stuck in
that's a separate category.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Just looking at the presentation in terms of aesthetics. So, satisfactory would be key information is shown, consistent graphics, some audio.
This is it.
So it has consistent graphics. There are no audio. But the key information is shown. So
there's a little bit of tearing between some of the sprites as well.
Yeah. So I think we're either halfway between a pass and a satisfactory or a satisfactory at this point.
I think we can give them the benefit of the doubt. So go with satisfactory for that.
Okay.
Can we mark that down?
So then if
doesn't satisfactory need some audio?
Yeah, but I think sort of the general presentation of everything else.
Everything else.
They've got the information design, they've got the contextual pop-ups and stuff.
Yeah.
That probably nudges it up a little bit.
Yeah, agreed.
So if we have a look at the gameplay, so again, looking at sort of satisfactory, that would be a set of mechanics and usable controls that leads to some meaningful play.
Okay.
I think it definitely.
I think there. What is good at this point?
So good would be complementary mechanics and smooth and usable controls that leads to meaningful play.
I'm not sure I'd describe the controls as smooth and usable.
No, I mean you can control it fine.
They are slightly painful to use.
How so?
In the weird position, I'm having to hold my hand to get space and A and D with one. I guess I could switch hands like that, and it's an odd set of controls. Put it that way.
Right, but it's not about the keyboard bindings, it's about sort of do they move the character smoothly.
But that's the other thing, it keeps getting caught on objects and trapped and stuck, and the jump's a little sporadic at times as well, so sometimes it'll do certain height, other times it'll catapult you into the air like you're making a bid for freedom.
Okay.
So I think a satisfactory around for gameplay as well.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure that the killing the beasts mechanic gives us anything in terms of the overall dynamics of the game.
So I'd say the there's meaningful play in terms of do you want to sort of chase every last little gold pile, or do you sort of try and prioritize your time? So there's that sort of decision making,
and that's a great thing, yes.
And sort of having the enemies as obstacles to make that more challenging, and then giving you the opportunity to get around it.
Yeah.
I think that's
okay.
I'd say maybe sort of between satisfactory and good. Or do you feel controls are let it down?
So, I mean, the controls are okay. I think it's nice to have that balance between time and gold piles, but I do feel like the balance is perhaps off on it. Because I was going for gold piles, but actually it feels like the incentive is just to get to the end. Really.
Yeah. I think that's because they've gone for the sort of core dynamic of race to the end.
Yeah, and they have thought it through the core dynamic, exactly.
So
it does mean... I mean, I guess this comes down to procedural generation actually a little bit later, but I've noticed that the last 3 runs I've done, that score has only ever varied by about 200 points.
Yeah.
Regardless of what strategy I've opted for.
Well, yeah. So I think, like you say, they prioritise speed a bit too much over the gold pile, perhaps, but... okay,
so let's do halfway between satisfactory and good on this one. I think there's enough good in here to outweigh some of the satisfactory bits.
Alright, and last but not least for quality is bugs. So you notice a couple of things where you sort of get stuck on the terrain a little bit.
That.
Speaking of, sorry.
Yep, but it's relatively minor.
Yeah.
Any others you've sort of noticed?
Mostly just getting stuck, honestly. I think everything else is more or less okay.
So satisfactory again would be infrequent serious bugs and or frequent minor bugs.
So I'm not sure it's even as
I'm not sure it's as severe as that.
No, it's not. It's not as severe as that. I think it is only minor bugs, and these are uncommon-ish. I actually think it's, again, somewhere between a satisfactory and a good on this one. It's a minor bug, but it does seem to keep happening, and it does actually impact your gameplay.
Yeah. Okay. So now we get on to the brief. So, hang on a minute, I got the wrong one for that. So the brief is about fulfilling the sort of procedural generation. So let's have a look at how they said they did their procedural generation. Race to the end while collecting items. The players will eventually find an optimal path through the level, so they justify it by doing that. The levels of the game are procedurally generated randomly at the beginning of each playthrough. The generation is based on a large 4x4 grid, surrounded by fixed walls to prevent the player from escaping the level. Each square on the grid is filled with a 10x6 segment. These segments are pre-made to help maintain the quality of generated levels by giving the random generation manual guidance and contain enemies, platforms, and pickups. So it's the manual guidance bit I'm a little unsure of how much guidance is going into which rooms are put next together. Because it says the large grid is filled randomly as the level loads with these smaller segments. All the segments can fill any square on the 4x4 grid to increase the number of combinations. The player can always progress through the level, so they do some validation on making sure there's always a path by creating sort of holes between the squares on the grid.
So we've definitely never gotten stuck in a way that leaves us unable to progress, which is nice.
Yeah, they've done decent checking on this.
So if we have a look at the fulfilling briefs, they've done procedural generation. Satisfactory would be straightforward procedural generation, but incorporates some effective rules that enable meaningful play.
I think that's pretty close to exactly what we are.
Whereas pass would be simple procedural generation that in the majority of cases allows play.
Yeah, it's definitely allowing some meaningful play. I think that's absolutely
agreed.
What it is.
Yeah.
Agreed. I think it's a satisfactory use of procedural generation.
I say it's very similar to some games we've seen in previous videos that have this sort of similar sort of we pre-designed some sort of level tiles, and then we just use the procedural generation to vary between them.
Yep.
Okay, and then the next question is sort of how meaningful is it? So is this innovation? What stops the innovation from being a gimmick, and would the game be better or worse if it wasn't included? So they so in their game notes they say the reason that they have included it is to stop people learning the route. So as always with sort of procedural generation, the argument is replayability. By forcing the players to engage with the core mechanics of the game, as opposed to focusing on learning the levels, as well as making them improve as they go, which tends to be more fun. Furthermore, it gives a unique experience to each player, increasing the level of investment. So again, it's the old replayability argument.
So, I mean, the thing with as always with replayability is motivation to replay the game, right? And it has got that score mechanic in there, but that does only go so far.
And you could almost say that there is a slight amount of conflict between the what was I saying? The fact that you are based on your score, but then the level is randomly generated, means that you're not necessarily competing against yourself each time. That's not always a big problem. I mean, you found that you got relatively consistent scores anyway.
Yeah.
So maybe they are sort of relatively well balanced. I don't know if they always ensure there's the same amount of gold per tile or sort of across
over the course of the game. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
So it's a straightforward design that, in a small way, takes advantage of the innovation, right? So in this case, I mean, in a small way, that would be it's replayable. I don't think it's up a notch in that it's doesn't take a significant effective advantage of the innovation.
Yeah.
The question then is, what about on the poor side, a simplistic design or one that does not. No, it does take advantage of it.
It does.
The replayability itself says that you're taking some advantage of it. So I think that puts it firmly in the satisfactory camp.
I agree. And last but not least,
feedback. What did they say?
So let me have a look. Feedback. Feedback and response. Initially, we decided to use procedural generation without considering how it would serve the core dynamic. In response to this, we redesigned the project with a focus on the core mechanics, and then determined how the procedural generation could enhance that dynamic. Okay, they haven't really explained how they've done that, though. They've said we thought about doing this thing, but they haven't told us what they've done to address it.
Right, which I think is actually one of the feedback qualities. We actually took that into account in the marking, so they've clearly said what they were told to do about their feedback, but they didn't express what they did well, and I can't remember which category that goes in.
So they've also said we were also told to check that the procedural generation wouldn't produce boring levels, which we combated through the combination of manual and procedural generation. So that's fair enough. So they've at least taken that on board.
Absolutely.
There needs to be a way that sort of these individual segments are interesting. Hey, nice little. So if we go back and look at the mark scheme for this. So again, a satisfactory would be feedback was articulated and some changes have been attempted with partial success. I feel like a pass would be feedback was not well articulated, but some changes have been made with limited success. I feel like they've given us 2 bits of feedback. One of them was not particularly well articulated.
I think we're halfway between those two, between a poor and satisfactory, or pass and satisfactory.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to the next game.
Okay, our next game is Infinite.
I wonder what kind of game this might be.
I think it is an endless runner. So space, start the game and change the direction of the player. The higher the score, the faster the player.
Oh, that's a little choppy.
Okay. So it's generating the level ahead of you. You've got the sort of one button. So this would make a nice little mobile game. You sort of just
this would definitely be a mobile game, wouldn't it? Yeah.
But I don't think there is a lot more to this game than this.
Yeah.
Nope.
So the presentation is quite nice. In fact,
yeah, I like the presentation.
There's not really a lot else to see with this game, I don't think. So should we just jump in and sort of start talking about?
I think so. Let's talk about. Start at the top. We've got.
So first things first is presentation. So information design and aesthetics. So aesthetically, this game's really nice.
I really like this game. Simple but well done.
You've got the little +3 to show how many points you get every time you pick up one of those things. That's really nice.
Yeah.
So your score is also going up, I think, based on distance as well.
I think so.
Which is slightly at odds with it because your score sort of jumps up a little bit when you don't pick these things up. So
it also looks like you do go faster.
Yeah.
I do love the dandelion puffs of pink whenever you run through the balls, the smashies. But is there music? Are we muted on this one?
We do have sound, I think, so I'll double check in a moment, but yeah, so I don't think there is sound to this game.
Okay. So, which is a shame because, I mean, otherwise, it's actually a really nice looking game.
Yeah.
And would have...
So, on the one hand, it's very nice, it's very simple, and on the one hand, that's fine as an aesthetic, but also there's not a whole lot of information to actually convey to the player.
Yeah.
So if we look at the mark scheme, where are we? So satisfactory would be key information is shown, consistent graphics, some audio. And again, there's no audio.
Mm-hmm.
The graphics are nice and consistent. The information design, what information there is to convey, is conveyed well.
Yep.
But there just isn't a lot of it to sort of demonstrate.
Go through, yep.
Oh, interesting. You get a different colour background if you beat your high score. That's a nice touch.
I didn't beat my high score then, though.
No, that's my point. You didn't.
Oh, right.
So you didn't get the purple background. Anyway. So it's like there are little sort of nuggets of information that is conveying in that way, which is kind of nice. So it's a shame it doesn't have just like some background.
A little bit of sound because it would have tipped us all the way up into the satisfactory category.
I think I don't know. Maybe we still give it a satisfactory because again, the presentation of everything else is very nice.
Yeah.
And maybe that sort of brings it up just about.
I think I'd be willing to go there. It is a nice presentation, and I do actually really like the movement of the maze.
It's like
the ball stays still and the maze moves. I actually really like that.
It's like driving on a pixelated line. If you drew a line in paint, this would be like driving.
So
it's like
here's the thing. So gameplay. how do you feel about the gameplay?
It's very straightforward.
There is not a whole lot going on.
No, you have no choices. No.
That's it. So one of the things we sort of spoke to them about in the Expo, I remember, or in the design labs, was like one way to add like just a little bit of extra complexity is to have multiple routes. So you get to pick, okay, which one of these looks...
This has more smashies, but that one's easier. Or, yeah.
So I think it is probably let down a little bit by its simplicity.
Agreed.
Like, what gameplay is there? I mean, Callum certainly seems to look like he's concentrating on it.
Well, it's challenging because you have to be quick. It's very much a sort of Twitch-based game.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of strategy or
so I was very sort of
choice to it.
That the ball doesn't like lock to the centre of the cube either. You can sort of like go right along the edges there. Okay, so gameplay. So if we look at,
I think we're
if we look at
near the pass level.
A pass
exactly.
is fewer inconsistent mechanics, and I think that's the thing. There's just not that much going on. You've got changing direction
Yes.
and picking things up for points.
Absolutely.
Challenging controls leading to limited meaningful play, and again, there's not really meaningful play. It's sort of skill-based reactions, but you're not making sort of any.
There's
gameplay
no
choices.
Yep.
So I think. So below that would be few mechanics, difficult controls, leading to very little meaningful play, and it honestly might be between the two.
I was going to say, I'm almost tempted to go between the two because they're really there's just not a lot of mechanics in this. Yeah, I think we're between poor and pass at this point. Bugs. Any bugs? How are you feeling on bugs? Have we stumbled across any?
Aside from that occasional stuttering, it seems perfectly fine in terms of bugs. But to be honest, with a game of this level of complexity, that's probably what I'd expect.
Right, and so we have complexity built into the bug requirement or the bug statement. So it says...
So pass, for example, is a simple game, playable, but there are frequent serious bugs, or poor would be a very simple game run, or the game runs, but the serious bugs make it almost unplayable. So
it's a but. So it's a very simple game. Game runs, but yeah. So I think we're higher than a poor. It is a simple game. The game is playable.
It's just not enough going on that something would go wrong.
Yeah, and so the question is because there aren't serious bugs, right? And so it's a simple game. We're at least a minimum of the pass. There are no serious bugs. So there are some infrequent serious bugs and or frequent minor bugs. We're not even really there.
No, I think pass is probably going to be the top one for this.
It's just such a simple game. I agree.
And that's, like, simple games inherently aren't a bad thing. They're like very nice, sort of like, particularly sort of like the mobile market for that. But in terms of showcasing sort of what you've learned across this course, like, it just needs a little bit more in terms of mechanics.
Yeah.
So next, I believe this is procedural generation.
It is procedural generation, yes. As an endless runner, the player can use the spacebar and score points. It's an endlessly randomly generated map. The random generation of game maps will always keep the player interested and excited about the game. So yeah, that's...
They use an array to store different tiles and then define a random index to generate different tiles and collections. So the thing, it doesn't even sound like there's a lot in the way of rules that define sort of
meaningful sets of things and combinations.
Like interesting sort of corners, like having a sort of a long straight section and then a very tight wiggly bit or something like that. It sounds very much like they're just sort of placed at random.
It does.
And procedural is not the same as random. You need some sort of a set of rules to really sort of to guide the fun of your game. So the game inherently gets more difficult as you progress because it gets faster, but the difficulty of the level doesn't scale with that.
That's right.
So what are we looking at? So pass would be simple procedural generation that in the majority of cases allows play. Poor would be overly simple procedural generation that in many cases impedes or harms play. I don't think it impedes or harms the play, but it's
overly
just so
simple. So I think we're between a pass and a poor on that one.
So.
It doesn't impede play, but it's overly simple.
And similarly for the... So bear in mind, this is... so that's just sort of, the technical capability of it, and I think you're right, it is simple enough that it does that. in terms of sort of the design itself, is it a useful thing to include here, and does it sort of impact play?
Right. So again, this is one of the problems with that whole replayability, is that in this case it doesn't.
I think you could replay it and it would be different.
It will,
but why?
Yeah,
it's a really tricky thing to balance, and as an endless runner, you sort of have to have procedural elements in there, otherwise eventually you're going to run out of levels. So it's absolutely sort of necessary to the concept of the game. But just like then we saw there, including sort of, for example, the points, means your score can vary quite wildly differently because of the way it generates some of these things.
Yeah.
Yes, those cubes affect the score disproportionately. They probably make up a good maybe 20 to 50% of the score.
And because none of it's down to player sort of choice, it's just, okay, do
they square?
Spawn?
Yeah.
So a path for the design element would be simplistic design, or one that does not take advantage of the innovation, where the innovation does not detract from the experience, and limitations, although present, do not prevent meaningful play. Poor would be inappropriate design for the innovation, where the innovation is in conflict with the gameplay and limitations are a significant problem.
No, I think we're at pass.
Yeah, I think we're at pass again. Maybe a bit below, because of this, like the collections do sort of hinder, like the way they generate sort of just has too much impact on
the actual score. Yeah, well, I think you're right.
Yeah, no, you're right.
It's not. It hasn't been thought through on where to put those. I agree.
If it was a case of if they were always showed up on really tight terms.
Yeah.
So that, but here, look, we've got a really nice straight bit with 3 collectibles on it.
Yeah. If
it was a case of they rewarded you for completing like a really tricky section with these bonus points or something, then your score would still effectively be down to a random number generator, but it would. Like just a little bit of reward for sort of risk, I guess.
Yeah. So I think the simplest way to solve this would actually just put 1 cube on every corner, right in the middle, and then you get a reward for perfectly executing a corner.
Yeah, actually that works. Okay, so if we put that between the poor and pass, and then last feedback. So the feedback they received provides some alternatives to the game, like adding a few more routes to the map. But the one-button mechanism is good. It's not necessary to add jumping.
Okay, so they said we gave them feedback for adding more routes to the game.
Yeah, they decided not to. So they responded to this with, they tried to create and spawn more tiles which have more directions, but that makes the interface a little less clean. Trying to make the game more difficult and the map more complex after the player has scored a certain number of points.
So it sounds like they've listened to the feedback and chosen not to implement it. Mm-hmm. And actually I think that works against the game. I think it does need those extra choice elements and a little bit more to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just looking. So they mentioned at the bottom that to make the map more complex after the player has scored a certain number of points. But in their game notes, they don't mention that. They just say they're randomly picked. So I don't think that's even the case.
Yeah. Nor have we seen any evidence of it.
I must admit, I can't tell the difference between the late game and the early game, really.
Alright, so if we look on the mark scheme, so this might be a case that feedback was not well articulated and few changes have been made with little success.
I think so.
Which unfortunately puts it down in a poor.
Yeah, and that's
it's one of these games that just goes to show it can be a nice little game, but unless it sort of really showcases what they've learned across the course, then unfortunately it's not going to do so well on the mark scheme.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Alright, thank you.
You can't make me stop this.
I'm so sorry, you just have to fly off the edge here.
So should we move on to the next one?
I think we should. Kill it.
Go on. I've got places to do.
I beat my high score. Alright. So this one is being done in Unity. So so no guarantees how well this is going to run.
I remember this one. Okay, so this is Wave Runner.
Yes, it is.
It is another endless runner. So we've got some boxes that we can avoid. We've got some nice sound that I'm going to just turn down a little bit.
So we'll point out some controls would be nice. Oh, I have jump.
And there we go. So yeah, I was going to say, but it's obvious. It's left and right and it's fine, but...
How did I die?
So, That's interesting. This looks very similar to the Running Cat.
It's, it has similar assets, but the gameplay looks very different.
Okay.
Oh, okay. You can run into the poles.
Yeah.
So, I not to skip too far ahead, but it does feel like there's a number of very strange things happening with the collisions in this.
Yeah.
That in a game that is centered around accuracy and skill is...
Can you jump?
Can jump.
Are you... when you move, you're not snapping directly to the centre of like the next lane, are you? And I think that's... hinders it quite a bit, because you've got these 3 very clear lanes of obstacles and routes. But the fact that you can sort of hit into the middle of a lane like that is a bit of a problem.
Especially, we've got a small amount of stuttering as well, which doesn't help. But
so you've got your score in the corner.
Oh no, I am snapping to lanes. Yes, it just wasn't immediately clear.
How are you hitting them?
So I was
yeah, so even that was a hit.
And I don't... That is very unclear what I hit there.
Yeah.
No, it does snap to lane, sorry, it just wasn't immediately clear.
Okay, so
we're good.
It's just sort of, you're taking a little bit of time to drift across them. You hit something else there. Okay, that.
This is...
Okay, so I do think we could talk about bugs actually a little bit now.
Well, let's start at the top and start with presentation and information design and aesthetics.
Sure.
It's a lovely set of assets. They go together quite nicely.
It does, yeah.
The
music?
I'm just going to do this.
Your score is tucked away up there in the top left. It's certainly not clear, or at least I'm guessing it's not clear when you're playing because you're focusing on the middle of the screen.
Yeah, I'm absolutely paying no attention to the score. It's just whatever it is.
Yeah.
Which is sort of fine. The score is not.
Nope.
Necessarily a meaningful impact on the gameplay, but.
Okay, that was lag. Your turn, Age.
Oh.
I'm going to rage quit if I keep playing this.
Got it. Okay.
By the way, okay, so it looks nice. It's got audio. It maybe be nice if there was like a couple of other audio cues. I don't know if you hit something or something, but again, it's got some audio. Good.
Yeah.
In terms of information design, there's not a huge amount to convey, but well, I think we'll sort of cover this in bugs. The obstacles are very clear, like what's an obstacle and what's not. The fact that the collision detection is a bit off
is very rage-inducing.
I think I'd file that under bugs rather than information design.
I agree.
It's clear where they should be, and that's obviously why you're getting so frustrated with it, because it's not where they're being shown to be.
Yes, I think.
Okay, so I guess satisfactory would be set of.
Ooh, I found an interesting bug.
Oh, perfect!
I ran into this. We're just up in the score at this point.
So key information shown, consistent graphics, some audio.
No.
It wasn't actually until I hit the edge of it that I died.
Let's see if we can reproduce that. A good would be key information shown clearly, graphics are consistent, and there's appropriate use of audio effects and music.
I'm not sure. So yes, they can.
So this is so interesting. This is also a flip of the 2 previous games. It's got audio, which is nice. It's got that sort of like quick little sort of momentum, like bouncy little music theme. But there's not much in the way of information design here. So I think it's still probably a satisfactory because it's displaying the score. It is slightly tucked away. Those barriers are clearly barriers, but other than that, there's not much more beyond in terms of that. Does that sound okay to you?
Yeah.
Okey-dokey. Gameplay. Again, it's an endless runner. There's not a huge amount in the way of mechanics. You've basically got sort of movement controls, and you will occasionally bump into things.
Yep.
There's not a lot in the way of decisions. There's never any sort of alternative route or anything like that, as far as I can see. Mm-hmm. You've got no incentive to take like a riskier path to collect a coin.
Nope.
Like
in fact, what we've got here is a perfectly linear path which works nicely. That was nice.
What?
So you can run into that one and just...
No! I'm not running into anything.
So the thing is, so a pacifist would be pure inconsistent mechanics, challenging controls, leading to limited meaningful play.
To be honest, regarding the control screen, and you can throw in your hat here as well, Age, I feel like it's not quite tight enough for the type of game they're building. So
you want sort of much more clearer sort of snap.
It wants to be short, quick, snap to the lane. The number of times we've been caught out by the edge of an obstacle while just finishing the transition into a lane.
It's bad.
It's genuinely very frustrating.
But otherwise, it still sounds like it probably sits in a pass. So fewer inconsistent mechanics and challenging controls.
Yes.
And limited meaningful play, which is...
It's basically sort of exactly a pass.
Yes.
So it's got slightly more mechanics than the last game we saw, because it's got the sort of jumping over obstacles and things like that. So there's slightly more choice of, okay, do you want to move around it or jump over it?
True.
So there is that. But yeah.
So this is a minor presentation nitpick. Very minor, I hasten to add. It'd be really nice if they started the soundtrack at a different point each loop.
You're bored.
It's not that, it's with the slight frustration coming from some of the bugs in the game. Oh, so that's nice, you can actually jump over it. With the frustration coming from some of the bugs in the game, having to hear the same 30 seconds of soundtrack over and over is like listening to one of those 10-hour YouTube videos. So, minor nitpick there for future reference.
Alright, so let's get on to the one I can guess.
I was in my lane, I swear.
Some bugs.
Yeah, it's got some problems. So it has definitely catching on
that box is there at the start every time.
Always, that's where they start it, yeah. Yeah, so you get really caught on the edges of things. Like, so there I cleared a leap, but obviously caught on the...
So a pass for bugs would be a simple game, playable with frequent serious bugs.
So even there, right? I was in my lane, I wasn't actually going into anything, I just decided to move lane before the lane was actually finished, and I died. Right, so, yeah. There's a lot, it's not...
So I think it's got to be frequent serious bugs.
It's frequent serious.
When the core gameplay is basically, not precision platforming, precision lane changing.
Yep.
Having obstacles that are unclear because they're gaps in the ground, or having the edge of obstacles be not clearly defined is a
problem.
Is a major issue.
So I think... so again, similar to the last game, it's quite simple, but it's got more complexity, but this one does have...
I didn't even touch the keys. Yeah, sorry.
Some pretty serious bugs.
Yeah.
Pretty serious.
So the question is it a pass or a pull?
It's a pass.
Right. Excellent.
Which takes us to fulfilling the brief. So this is another procedural generation one, I think.
I do believe it is.
So how did they get the procedural generation to work?
So procedural generation, it's there's 3 types of hurdles. They're randomly generated, so they're using randomly generated obstacles in up to 4 different locations, depending on how high the player's score is.
Okay.
The algorithm chooses at random from an array of possible objects to instantiate and then creates it. There are measures in place to make sure no impossible layout is created and no multiple hurdles are generated on top of one another.
Okay, so it does try and...
have a path. So it checks itself that there's a path.
But it also tries to increase the difficulty the further through you get.
Yes.
Okay. So if we look at the mark scheme again, so if we look at satisfactory, it would be straightforward procedural generation that incorporates some effective rules that enable meaningful play. Good would be appropriate procedural generation that incorporates some effective rules to enhance or personalise play. So I don't think it personalises it because it doesn't sort of take into account your actions and sort of whether you prefer to jump.
I love jumping or switching lanes, right?
But it does try and increase the difficulty. I mean, are you noticing are you noticing it getting harder?
Only from bugs.
Yes, I wouldn't know. I've never gotten far enough.
And a pass would be simple procedural generation that in the majority of cases allows play. I think this might be sort of towards the satisfactory end, just in terms of the way they've executed it.
It's certainly the procedural generation is necessary for play. I mean, that's definitely in this category, right?
Yes. Well, there's a bit of overlap between the two.
Definitely. So in that sense, I think...
Well, it's more a case of, does the way they've implemented it allow you to play the game? meaningfulness is more.
I think we're in satisfactory on this one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
And then, the design element is sort of the meaningfulness. So, would this game work without procedural generation? And again, because it's an endless runner, inherently, no, it doesn't.
Yeah. But then how straightforward is it, and how or does it enhance?
I say, how does the design of it affect the play? So hypothetically, if we had an endlessly sort of designed level, would it be better? And the thing is, inherently no, just because you can't have that. This game wouldn't work without procedural generation. Whether it enhances sort of replayability and that kind of thing.
There are a few places where it's obviously they say they check that you can't do multiple hurdles. There have been a few places though where the order of hurdle alignment is beyond my capability. Whether it's beyond,
but that's more the brief side of things. That's whether the technical implementation of it. This is whether does the game take advantage of having it.
I actually think Age has a point there, in the sense of if you consider that an endless runner should get harder as it goes on, there seems to be very little consideration of that in the way the obstacles are spawned.
But that's the previous.
Well, no, I think it detracts from the meaningfulness of the game. If you expect a game to be meaningful by getting harder at the end, it upsets the difficulty curve.
Absolutely.
Because so frequently, there are obstacles in this that you can't get around except by jumping. You can't lane change around them. Okay. I would expect the game to generate the obstacles in increasingly difficult combinations as the game goes on.
Which is what it says it tries to do.
But it doesn't feel like
it doesn't. It's not evident from the play on that
absolutely.
One. Yeah,
it might just be that we've not gotten far enough, but it just there are combinations of obstacles at the start that feel disproportionately hard compared to the rest of the start.
Okay, so if we have a look, let's have a look at satisfactory, and that is a straightforward design that in a small way takes advantage of the innovation, while the innovation in some part adds to the gameplay and where some limitations are avoided. So do you feel it meets that?
Could you read it again? I'm so sorry.
A straightforward design that in a small way takes advantage of the innovation, where the innovation in some part adds to the gameplay and where some limitations are avoided.
I'm okay with that.
I mean, the one below it, of course, is a simplistic design, or one that does not take advantage of the innovation, where innovation does not detract from the experience, and limitations, although present, do not prevent meaningful play.
So it might be more fitting to that. What do you think?
I'm on the fence, and maybe it's halfway.
It's halfway. It's a very, very simple design.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And last but not least,
it's feedback. The main feedback was not to focus so much on an adaptive difficulty aspect of the game and more focus on having a solid procedural aspect. They cut down their ideas for the adaptive difficulty and focus more on what we could make to get generation up the track and obstacles working as best as they could.
Okay, that seems reasonable. It would be nice if they sort of talked about how they'd use that extra effort to make the procedural generation better. Because I do remember talking to them about this in design lab, and they were very keen on the adaptive difficulty stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that makes up such a small percentage of the marks that you really need to sort of focus on
doing the game
the
properly.
core gameplay part.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good that they sort of took that on board and tried to.
But what did they do with it?
But
really?
that's it. Like what did they do to the procedural generation that made it sort of?
Yeah.
So
the feedback was articulated, but we really can't. And some changes they're around satisfactory on this.
Maybe even sort of between a pass and a satisfactory.
I think so, because I can't say they had any partial success on that. It's limited success.
Beat your high score
on a technicality. All right.
So I think that is our last game for this batch.
Thank you for playing with us. We'll see you at the next Let's Play.